Okay, welcome back. Again, if you have any experience with Google Slides, which is their presentation software, the equivalent of Microsoft's PowerPoint, you can feel free to skip this video and go on to the tips and tricks one instead. I'll have some interesting little things you can do with slides that not everyone's aware of that can make your life easier and your students' lives easier. But this is going to be just a really basic overview. We're going to go over the core functionality. We're going to see what slides looks like. We're going to see how it imports PowerPoints and talk a little bit about animation. So that's kind of a rough outline of what we're going to be doing. If you're not interested in that, if you think you've already got that down, feel free to go on to the more advanced video. Okay, so you should already have a Google Gmail account set up and have some familiarity with Docs from the first video. We're going to work on slides now. So same thing, once I'm on Google, I can click on the tic-tac-toe and scroll down to slides, which is the yellow icon. Okay, and that'll just take me to a new slides document. I've got templates I can choose from. I've got my old ones I can look at, but I'm just going to go ahead and choose a blank one. So the first thing that comes up is a title slide. I can click here to add title or subtitle. So we're going to say, and then I have to click on it to go down here. Just like with Docs, as soon as I click up here in entitled presentation, it'll change the name to whatever I have typed in the title there. You'll notice that it has popped up this bar along the side that says themes, and I've got different themes I can choose from that come with Google Slides. So I can click on these and see how they look. It takes a minute and then it'll shift into that background, that font, depending on which one I've chosen. And so different templates available for different things. You can just spice it up a little bit, let you mouse around, see what you like best. But you can see they've got some different layouts set up for you, and it automatically adjusts what you've already typed into that one. If this themes panel ever goes away and you're like, oh, I did not want this one, you can get it back by going into Format. Well, just kidding. Slide is where you want. And down at the bottom of slide is change theme. Okay, and change theme will just bring this window back up. In the more advanced one, I'm going to talk about importing themes and where you can find other themes for on the internet, which is a nice way to make your presentations look a little bit different than everyone else who's using Google Slides. But that's not what we're going to do now. So now that you've got your title slide, if you go down here to apply layout, this will change the layout of your current slide. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make a new slide. It's telling me that on my Mac the keyboard shortcut is Control M. I think it's the same on PC. So I can just hit that instead of having to go up to slide and new slide every time once I get the hang of it. And it automatically changes it to a default presentation slide. So this has your first your first slide that has just a title and a block for text. You don't have to keep text here. You can insert an image just like you did before. You can also drag and drop them from your desktop to here. And there's a lot of different things you can do there, but that's the basic layout. If that's not what you want for your slide, when you go over to slide and apply layout, you can choose different types of slides. So some of them are very colorful and are good for transitions. Some of them are the same as the basic slide. They just have multiple columns, so you can have different things on there. And some of them have like a big number or something to really like hit your point home. So in the apply layout, you can see demos of all of those. You never have to keep what's on here. You can draw in your own text blocks and things. So for example, in this presentation over here, the scratch walkthrough that I have, you'll see that sometimes I kept the basic layout where it's got the title and then the block, and then sometimes I put in an image and then just put a little text box on the side to make it more clear what you should do. Some of my slides don't have any text. This is just a picture that I've put in that included text. And so it really depends on what you want to do. You can also put in word art, or not word art, but you can put in objects like these arrows. And I got to this by going to this select line menu, and you've got different options there. You can draw in shapes, different boxes, things like that. So there's a lot of things that you can do graphically to make your presentation more understandable. Okay, these elements you can control what end the arrow is on by using these buttons, what the arrow looks like. You can control the weight of the line. So I have a pretty heavy weight. I wanted the arrows to really stand out. If they get tiny, it looks a little bit ridiculous. Dash, dotted, whatever you want for that. And then also what color. So similarly, if I get back to where I'm going, if I wanted to draw in a box, let's say, I can absolutely type in this box just by double clicking on it. I don't have to make it a text box. I can make it a regular rectangle. And you'll see its fill color is this sort of tan and the outline is a dark brown. Maybe I don't think the outline, the border is heavy enough, so I'll make it be 4 points instead. It makes it a little bit easier to see. You also can make that be a dotted outline for your border instead if that's what you want. And you can choose what color or what kind of font is inside of it and what color that font is. So it looks a little silly to me being so small, so I'm going to make it super big, too big, backpedaling, and then I'm going to just put it in the center. Okay. So you've got a lot of different ways that you can play around with just with these basics. Just like in Google Docs, you've got numbered lists, unnumbered lists. You've got different ways that you can adjust things. If you have an image or something in here, you can use these blue squares on the edge to adjust the sizes of your text box so that you don't have your text running into your image or whatever else you have going on over here. But that's just kind of some basic functionality. The insert box has a lot of the same stuff, but then also some other things. We'll get into more of those later, but that's what I wanted to show you for now. Just like with Google Docs, you can share. So right now it says it's private only to me. If I go to the basic Scratch walkthrough, I would see all my whole team on there because it's in a folder that's shared with everyone else. In Google Drive, you can share entire folders. So if you don't want to have to mess with permissions every single time you're creating a document you want to share with students, you could have a folder set up in your Google Drive that's, you know, 4th period science, and have everything in that folder. As soon as you put it in there, it's able to be accessed by all of your students. So you're not having to mess around with permissions. So you can still do it item by item though. You can type in email addresses to add as people who can view, people who can comment, or people who can edit. You can change it so that the link, if you send it out, people will be able to view it. And if I go back over to Basic Scratch, this is in a shared folder, and right now someone is viewing it and they show up as an anonymous panda. They're not someone who is specifically listed by email on this document, and so they just show up that there's one person viewing it and they get assigned a random avatar. I think there's like 70 of them or something. So it's a fun little way where you can see if your students are checking in on you. I kind of like having a collectively edited slides document sometimes. You can have each student or pair of students be responsible for creating an example of a particular thing. So I had a lesson on igneous rocks, and so my students were all responsible for finding an example of an igneous rock formation and putting it into a slide where they'd have their basic information about it, a picture, their name, and then down here in speakers notes, I had them add their citation information. So if you're familiar with PowerPoint, there's a little place underneath where you can type, and you can have that so it's only visible to the speaker and then present the rest of the slide to anyone else. So I like that as an option as far as sharing and editing a document. I still would tell my students to, as soon as they're done with their slide, take a picture of it and send it to me just in case something happens and someone accidentally deletes their work. You should be able to use the history function and go back and retrieve it if someone did something to it, but it's always a good idea to back up your work, and just taking a quick screenshot of your slide as it is finished is probably the best way to preserve that. Okay, so next let's talk about what it looks like to import a PowerPoint. So I have a PowerPoint presentation pulled up over here, okay, and you can kind of see what it looks like. I've got some information down here in the boxes, okay, and so we're going to try to import that into Google Docs, or sorry, Google Slides, and see what happens. So I'm going to say import slides. And instead of using one of my existing presentations, I can import slides from other Google Slides. I'm going to upload it from my computer. So, oh, I totally don't know where it is right now. Just kidding. Let's do it this way and see if that's going to be easier for me. No, it's not. Can I do recent? Nope. I'll get there. Okay, here it is. That wasn't too bad. Okay, so it takes it just a little bit to convert it, and it's not perfect. Okay, this is something where if you're going to import a slideshow from PowerPoint to Google Slides, you're going to want to look it over to make sure it looks good. So it lets you choose which ones. And so if you only wanted a couple slides, you could just pick those. I'm going to go ahead and select all because I want to bring in all of the slides. And I can choose to whether I want to keep the original theme or use the current theme that I have in my presentation. I'm going to keep original theme just because I want to show you what it looks like. Okay, so now it's working on getting those slides converted and brought in. So the text is not exactly in the same font. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe the font came through. But you'll notice the background, the gradient looks different. Here, the white is up at the top. In this one, it's a circle in the background. This text, I think, is the same, but it just looks different because the background is different. The table came through okay. All of the images came through okay. You can see I still have my speaker notes down here. But as I go down, you'll notice that some of the text has gone off the bottom of the slide. So it doesn't always size things correctly. And when that happens, I can click, and you'll notice I don't have my cursor down in here. I clicked on the edge of this blue border around here to select everything inside there. And then I can just use this minus button to resize it so it all fits on the screen again. So if you're importing stuff from other presentations, you're going to want to just go through really quickly and make sure everything is to size. Okay. So but really it doesn't do a bad job. It's a good first effort, and then you just have to go through and tune it up. If that's something that you need to do to bring it from PowerPoint into Google Slides. Okay, something that I know students have a lot of fun with and sometimes is useful for you is to do animations from slide to slide or within a slide. So let's say I wanted to take this frog life cycle and show it one image at a time. Okay, I've started putting the little frogs down here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this image. I'm going to click on it to highlight, and then I hit Command C on a Mac. It's Control C on a PC. And then I'm going to paste it in here. And I'm going to use the crop image tool up here to just cut it down to which frog I want. And I think I'm on D. Did I already get D in there? And I'm forgetting? No. Okay. And the last one will be E. Same thing, I'm going to use the crop tool, just adjust it down to be the right frog. All right, so what I would like is I would like for this to be my final frog and all the other frogs to kind of lead up to it. Let's say that one of them gets out of order, okay, and now this one's in front of everyone. I can change that, what order it's in, by going to the Arrange panel and order and say either send backwards to send it back one layer or send to back to make it be the first frog in the order. Okay, pre-frog, something like that. So now if I'm just doing this presentation and I go to this slide, this is what I'll see. I don't want to see that. I want every frog except for A, the little tadpole, to be hidden when I first get to this page. So I'm going to click on B first, and this is in object animations. If I want a slide transition when I go to this slide, I can choose from the normal list of kind of goofy things for slide transitions. But for object animations, I just need to click on it first. So the first one I want to click on is that second frog there. And I'm going to say add animation. Fade in on click is the default. You can choose a bunch of different options. I'm going to switch that one to appear. And I want it to be on click. So I want to have to click my way through the frog. You can also set up timers if you would like to make that happen. So it goes through automatically, but that's not what I'm worried about now. And then this just controls how quickly that effect happens. So appear happens pretty quickly. We're going to say add animation, on click, fade in. I'll leave it that way. And you'll notice this is after the first image. So these are going to be in order because I'm clicking on them in order. But if I wanted to adjust them, I would just use these little grid lines over here and I can move them around so they're in order or not. Okay, so now I'm going to click on present on the first page. It's going to go into presentation mode. I can either click this arrow down here to advance it slide by slide. I can click play to go through it kind of automatically, or I can just click on the screen. And you'll see the little frogs showing up one after the other. So frog life cycle, always fun, but there are plenty of times when you want to have just a little bit of information at first to really draw your students' attention to that and then move on to other things. You can do that with text as well. It does not have to be an image. So it's a great way to focus attention on just what you're talking about for that particular part of the presentation. Okay, another thing you can do is, and honestly, if you want to pause right now and play around with that, I highly encourage that. That would be a great way to kind of solidify what you're doing and make sure you know what's happening. This motion panel shows up here, and I got that from somewhere. I'm totally blanking on where that animation comes from. Okay. And I don't want themes right now. Insert, no, format, slide transition. That's where you go to. Okay, so to animate things, you go to slide and you go to transition and it'll pull up this motion panel over there. Thank you for coming with me on this journey. Okay, there are plenty of things that you can put into this slide. You can put in diagrams, which are kind of interesting, but a little bit fiddly to work with. And so you can use these as like graphic organizers. This hierarchy one, you could even leave these blank and have your students fill them in. If that were the case, oh gosh, I picked two. That's terrible. I would probably go to one that was printed. Okay, I did something I didn't want to do, and so I'm going to use my undo button as my best friend there. Okay, so I'm going to pick the one I want. You'll see that you can change different hierarchy levels if you would like to, and you can kind of play around with these. So the diagrams are here if you want to get into that. Hierarchy is not the only format. I'm going to make a new slide by hitting Control M, and I can put in a relationship, a cycle, whatever. Let's do 5. Okay, so you can do different things with these, and you should be able to adjust their color as well before you get into it. So you can pull in one that's a different color if you want something different. Okay. Another cool thing you can do is if you are giving a presentation to students to work through at their own pace, So if they're going to be viewing this presentation on their own asynchronously, not with you going through it and narrating it and sharing it with them as a video, you can put in a video component to it that they can play on their own. And one of the neat things to do with video is you can put in a timer. So let's say you shared a chunk of information with them and you want them to do something with that information, like fill out a graphic organizer or just do a free write or send you a message about it. You can embed a timer really easily into your Google Slides by just putting in a YouTube video of a timer. So if I go to YouTube and I do 3-minute timer, and I just went to insert and then insert video, the first option is YouTube, but you can use your own videos that are in your drive or share from a URL. Okay, so here's a 3-minute timer. I can select that. It'll show up on the screen. And then I can resize it. So I would have my directions for what I wanted them doing during this 3 minutes. And then I would just pull this down so it's a small timer in the corner. And then when they're ready, they start the timer and it is just playing there in the background, and it'll make a noise when it's done to let them know how long they should be working on that particular task, okay? Which is a cool thing to do. So over here, you've got some playback options. Autoplay when presenting means that it'll start playing as soon as they get to that slide, which is an option. Excuse me, I wouldn't select mute audio necessarily because that would defeat the purpose of having an audible timer. But you can have some other things over here that are mostly just aesthetic. But that's a nice feature to know about just in case. Okay. So I shared the present thing with you really quickly. Let's go back and look at that again. I have options when I click on present. If I don't click on the big button, if I click on the little arrow next to it, I can see presenter view, which means I can see these speaker notes down here. Okay, so I can decide whether I'm presenting from the current slide, which would be the default, or from the beginning. And so this would just be a regular presentation. And we saw that already, so that's not great. Let's look at it with the presenter view. Okay, so what is behind on the screen here is the current slide. It gives you a version of previous and next. It gives you a timer. And you can also navigate to the slides based on what number they are in here. Okay, and you can see your notes here. I'm going to go into the audience tools and the advanced tips and tricks training, but this is the presenter version. When we get into screencasting with OBS, there's a way where you can record what you're presenting, but not this little pop-out window. So you can have this over your screen on your computer and be looking at this while you're recording what's back here, which is kind of nice. I'm 95% sure that that's true. I'm not 100%, but we'll get there. It'll be okay. Okay. I think that's most of the things you would want to do, or at least how to get in there just on a basic level. I totally lost my frog presentation. That's fine. But the format pane is for particular objects on here. So if I wanted to format this particular box, I would be able to do that. Insert is where you're going to put in your images, text box, video, etc. Most of those things are also across the top here, right? So most of the things you want to insert, they have buttons along here. Background changes the background of the slide, so I can change the background color. And then arrange, we talked about being the ordering of different options. Slide transition is where you get to those animations and also where you can apply different layouts. That's going to be it. Okay. I hope that this is enough to get you started, and I hope that you and your students can find some fun ways to use these slides together to do some cool things.